Yeah, so this was out of River Spirit Casino in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
We were playing 2-5. They're seven-handed there. So,
By the way, John, this is if you want to call in on a computer. Someone had said to me a few weeks ago, "Oh, this guy from Australia sounds great." You can do that. Obviously, it sounds better than a phone. So Tulsa,
yeah.
Oklahoma, 2-5 no limit. Okay, what's the buy-in structure here?
It's a 300 minimum uncapped.
300 uncapped. Oof.
Yeah,
Isn't there enough?
the game hardly ever runs. This is the only casino that's open in the area, really. Like the Oklahoma City casino is still closed. We have Hard Rock too here, but they're still closed. So the
Okay.
closest other poker room is in Durant.
Right. Choctaw, right?
Right, yeah, Choctaw.
Okay.
So we're getting a little bit bigger games running occasionally now. So, yeah, so seven-handed. It's a full table. I'm the effective stack at 2K. Villain has me covered. In the email, I told you he's like a late 20s guy. I've seen him in Durant several times and seen him around some of the tournaments that run and cash games. I thought he was pretty much the only other competent player at the table.
Okay.
Is how I read him. So, so we had a under the gun limp for 5. Hijack raised to 20.
Okay.
And then I 3-bet the button to 55, which I actually misclicked. I just meant to 3x, but with ace of hearts, deuce of hearts.
Well, that's a fairly wide 3-bet, I would say. This is probably supposed to be a fold, and some people have even gotten that on me for being like really super wide when I was even going over some online hands, because I think that I can even make a profitable case that you could even sometimes flat this hand and be profitable if you were very, very deep and against a lot of really, really weak competition. I can't imagine folding a suited ace on the button, even though it's your worst suited ace as a VPIP. Whether or not it's supposed to be played as a 3-bet or fold, it's probably always going to show slightly larger profit as a 3-bet. It's going to show a slightly larger profit as a 3-bet versus a flat call. But it's a little bit on the wider side. You said the hijack is the one that's competent, right?
No, under the gun is the villain who we actually go heads up to the flop with.
Oh, okay.
No, oh, I'm sorry. Not under the gun. The small blind is the villain that we actually get to the flop with.
So under the gun limps, hijack to 20. You make it 55 on the button with ace deuce of hearts. What does the small blind do?
The small blind 4 bets to 150, and then folds back around to me.
I mean, I think this should just be a fold. So he's 4-betting 3x from out of position. Let's just take a look at the size of the pot here. It's a 75, 80. So it's like 330. Well, you are getting like almost 3.3 to 1
I thought
in
we
position.
were deep enough to make the call.
Yeah, I mean, with that dead money in there, suited ace 3.3 to 1 in position, and you guys are 400 BBs deep, I can get on board. I can get on board with a call because I think it's probably, like, again, if you're looking at charts and stuff like that, it's probably just, it's going to be a fold. But, whatever. If you were to rank the best to worst suited aces in terms of, below ace 10, ace deuce is the worst one that you can have. Worse than ace 7, worse than ace 6. It's the worst kicker. It doesn't make many straights.
I've actually heard you say that before. That seems counterintuitive to me, but yeah, I mean, that's just the power of high card, I guess.
Yeah, I remember running it when I asked Colin this specific question. We had an episode all about it over on our Top Section podcast, where it's like, ace 9, ace 5, followed by like ace 4 suited, then like ace sort of 7, 8, and ace 3, then ace 6 and ace deuce. It kind of goes down, in that order. But okay, so you make the call. Looks like the pot's going to be what, 330, something 330ish or 325?
Yeah, right around there.
All right, 325. Yeah.
The flop is the queen of spades, deuce of diamonds, deuce of clubs.
Wow, what a flop. In a 4-bet pot where nobody should have a deuce, you flop trips with ace deuce.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
So he checks to me. This is actually the street that I think that I might be the most upset about the play,
Okay.
because he checked and I just checked back, which I think is pretty bad.
So small blind checks. Here's the thing: being this deep, I feel like you. First of all, just as a gut reaction, there's just no way that I think someone's going to be four betting pre and then folding to any bet on
Right.
the flop.
Yeah.
As they probably shouldn't be. And first of all, they're supposed to be betting anytime when you look at a certain situation, though, too. One of the things I learned too is that especially if you're a cold four better, you're supposed to almost bet every single flop heads
Right.
up.
I was definitely surprised.
Yeah, I mean, especially Queen Deuce Deuce. I mean, it's just like almost every single flop, maybe some rare exceptions. So it's very surprising to see a check here. But I think I might just start building now. I mean, because you're so deep that checking back here, that's going to make the assumption that you're somehow going to play a raise. I don't know if it's going to go bet call on turn and then you expect to bet on river and then, you raise him. But you could just go bet and start sizing sort of on the larger side on the turn and the river to get as much money in here as possible. If you
Right.
check it back and he bets turn and you just call and then he checks river, you haven't really accomplished anything. So I gotta think. I mean, it's a rainbow board, so then when you think about trying to be balanced, like it's like what other hands are you betting? And you could make a case that you could sort of take a protection type of sizing with like a hand like tens or jacks or ace queen plus for value, king queen plus for value, something like that. I mean, I would lean towards just sort of simplifying it and thinking that he's just not going to fold on the flop, so I'm going to bet.
Right.
You know?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So you
The
check that.
turn was a seven of clubs,
Okay.
and Dylan checks again, and I bet 150.
Okay. So here about 150, which is sort of
Half
a
pot-ish,
half pot
little-
sizing. You could have sort of backdoorish type of clubs. Again, usually this sizing isn't really reflected as the highest EV play in a given scenario. On the turn, it's usually either going to be smaller or taken for kind of a full type pot. To be honest with you, I think what I would I mean, you could go like 1/3 here and then blast on the river, hope that backdoor clubs come in. I don't know about sometimes checking back and then going full pot, but
Yeah.
whenever I'm deep, I just want to get money in the pot, however it is. So maybe it errs towards that 400 big blinds deep, wanting to just go kind of, larger. But okay, you bet 150.
Yeah, he calls.
Okay, so small blind call. So what kind of hand do you think he has?
At this point, I'm thinking. I mean, I've seen people like play super passive pot control lines with aces sometimes when we're real deep stacked. Especially since I had been the only one really like three betting light at this table. I had raised from late position, and he had three bet me like on his button a couple times. Nothing crazy. He probably just had hands both the times, to be honest. But so I have seen people, take kind of these weird passive lines with aces just when we have so much behind. just 'cause they
Yeah, I
don't wanna get
mean,
blown off their
I've
hand.
seen it, but it's kind of weird to see it check twice. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
I mean, it could be
agree.
a hand like jacks or tens or like ace king. Again, the hand is sort of balls to the wall because almost all those hands are supposed to be bet on the flop for some
Right.
sizing. But okay, so
I'm thinking a high pocket pair probably. I mean, maybe he even just like
25.
peels one off with the ace king suited or something. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
so the
but,
pot's 625 to the river.
Yeah, and the river's a ten of spades.
Okay, that's another bad card. That's actually the card that you could lose to. I actually remember a hand. This reminds me of a nightmarish hand that I played back at the bike
Yeah.
many, many years ago where I flopped top set, I want to say of like eights or nines or some bullshit, like on 9 deuce 3, and I had this whale in the hand and I played it super hard. I knew he had an overpair and it was like 9 deuce 3. I like raised with nines on the flop, huge. He called. I'm like, I got this guy. Like the turn was a deuce. He checked. I bet again. He called. I'm like, I'm gonna get this guy. River was a 10. It was like 9 deuce 3, deuce 10. He checked. I bet, and he check jammed on me, and I was like, motherfucker. And I called, and of course he had 10-10. But all right, so
Well, that might
queen
get
deuce
even more-
deuce 7-10.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely similar to this hand, kind of. But yeah, the river's a 10, so he checks again for the third time.
Yeah.
and I bet 350.
Hero bets 350. Yeah, this is so you go half on the turn, half on the river. It's kind of really hard to have this guy find a call with ace high. I feel like so. I'm trying to kind of wonder the sizing here. Are you targeting
Yeah, so
like
probably size up.
jacks?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just to get called by.
I might tend to size up. I wonder if he ever plays like a pot control line with like king queen twice or some bullshit, or he's being like very very sort of defensive. But okay, you bet 350
Right, and he tanks for about 20 seconds and ships it.
for how much?
He had me covered. I was the effective stack to start the hand at
So
2K.
355. So you 15. So you put in 5 on the turn in the river, check back on the flop, and you put 1. So 650. So you've got 1350 more basically. I mean, you bet 13 small line for 1700.
Yeah.
1700 total. So you bet 350. That's 925. And he jams for another 7. So it's 26, 25, 1700 to call. It's 26, 25, 1700 to call, I think, is where
No, I don't have 1700.
Oh,
It started with 2K.
so excuse me, 1700 total. So, okay. So it's another 1350 more.
Right.
Yeah. So 1350 more. So 350, 700, 1325. You're getting about 2 to 1, right?
Yeah.
It's like 26 or 2700, 1350 to call, something like that.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
Right, because that would equal 4,000. I mean, that's no. You're never really supposed to fold this hand. Would I ever fold it in practice? Whatever, depending on the times when how competent I think that the villain is. I mean, if the villain's competent, he's supposed to have bluffs, but I think this is just one of these situations where I've seen some kind of wacky. There's no way that somebody can make the argument and say, well, you have to fold here. It's a losing call. I've seen too many things where, I mean, you would always call here, sort of in the theory of play. You'd have to have a massive, massive, exploit where a guy like Ken on TCH Live, or I think his name's Ken, like he's just always going to have pocket queens or pocket tens. You know what I mean? Something like that. But unless you really, really know the guy, I would have a hard time folding in practice.
Yeah, this is kind of something that, I mean, you talk about a lot, right? I mean, people are just so value heavy with a line like this on the river, I think. Like, I don't think he's ever bluffing here. So if you think that he's going for value 100%, do you still make the call? Do we ever think he's going all in with a worse hand?
I don't think so. I mean, if you've never seen a check raise, that's going to be a bluff here in this spot, I can't come up with what worse hand can possibly check raise you all in here for value based upon the pre-flop cold 4-bet.
Yeah, that's kind of what
Queen. You think that Queen 10 suited is check raising on a paired board here all in for? No. If Queen 10 was doing it, he would be doing it as a bluff to maybe try to get you off of like pocket kings or something like that. Pocket sevens is another hand that beats you. How often is that cold 4-bet? Even someone said, how often is 10-10 cold 4-bet in the small blind? I just, I think I just can't see it being a big mistake by you calling here, getting 2 to 1, being one out of, good 1 out of 3 times. If someone wants to say, well, in live poker, this is not, you're not good here 1 out of 3 times. I wouldn't lose that much sleep over it. Put it that way.
Yeah. That's kind of, I mean, I actually didn't take a very long to decide. I basically, like I said, I don't think he's ever bluffing. So, I mean, what worse hands is he doing this with for value? This just feels like every time.
Or aces, but you block aces, right? And again, like, is someone taking aces? Is somebody pot controlling aces here to check jam it on the river? That doesn't sound like a lot of sense.
And I guess I'll tell you what ended up happening, but I guess this is just kind of comes down to like knowing your player type. I gave this guy too much respect, I think, just because I probably thought he was better than he was. I ended up folding. I showed him my
If you
hand.
thought he was better than he was, wouldn't that lead you towards calling him more because he's trying to find a bluff?
Well, yeah, I guess I just didn't think that he would overvalue a hand like he did.
Oh my God, what did he have?
Yeah, I showed him and he immediately said, "Wow, I way overvalued my hand." He said I had aces. I was like, "You didn't have
He showed you
aces."
aces?
He didn't turn him over, but I 100% believe him. Just the rapport that we had, and he's like, I wouldn't lie to you. He's like, wow, I feel so dirty. He's like, I way overvalued my hand. And the other guys at the table were like, I would have never folded that. I can't believe you folded that. But my whole thing was, like, I know he's not bluffing. So what hand? He thought he was raising for value there, which makes no sense to me. But,
It would have been I think it would have been not your fault, but it would have been a better story if you just told us that he showed you aces, and then you're like, because I don't know if I buy it though. I don't know.
yeah,
People saying if you
I
didn't
did.
show it, it's not worth anything. I don't know, man. You've got an ace in your hand. It just doesn't sound all that consistent.
I would love to believe that he lied to me, but I mean, my read was that he was telling the truth at the time. But hopefully I'm wrong. I'd sleep on it.
Listen, if somebody is good, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm looking at a lot of people call on the show and they're like, "Oh, my opponent's good." But then we later find out that he limped in from under gun 2 with 4 deuce of hearts. Oh, he's good. But if somebody's good, the way that I look at that is that he can find bluffs in a given scenario, and he wouldn't necessarily. That he could find bluffs in a given scenario. I mean, that's basically what it would be. Like, you can't fold hands that are very, very high up in your range against good players. That's going to be, I mean, the theory is that's inherently unbalanced. You'd have to make a large exploit as a fold against someone that just can never have any bluffs. That's,
Right.
you
When
categorize
I say
that
good,
as,
I mean he's like playing reasonable hands from reasonable position and is value betting, the whaley type players correctly. I don't think that he is, I don't know. I'd never think that he is bluffing, in that situation. And he's not like a real aggro type of player. He's just, he's pretty good at just value betting and hand selection, the basic stuff that it takes to win at this level.
that's pretty, I don't know, man. That's pretty sort of optimistic for me. I mean, it's just, something smells sort of off because it's just really weird to see a guy check the flop and check the turn to check jam the river. By the way, with another card, if he did have aces that comes into your range as played, which is 10-10 as a check back on flop, or 7-7, but probably more to a lesser extent 10-10. By the way, if he has aces too and you check back queen-queen, if he has aces, he's losing the queen-queen in 10-10, right? And then what is he trying to get value from with that play? Right? You don't want to take a hand and then blow everything that's weaker than your hand to fold and then only have better to continue on. I mean, that's kind of, I don't know. It's an interesting one, but I appreciate the call. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call-in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.